Good evening, friends. On the behalf of Usana's Foundation, I welcome all of you today for this webinar on Pakistan's oppressed ethnic minorities. We started functioning last year in June during the lockdown phase when the webinars became a trend, and I think we were one of the uh, very few organizations who were initiating the webinar things in India in those days. And right from the beginning, we have given a very special focus on the condition of minorities in Pakistan. And we have been writing letters and petitions to the global bodies like the UN, HRC, Freedom House, National NFD in Democracy in Washington, D.C., and various other organizations, especially about the conditions of the minorities in Pakistan and the brutalities which they are facing every day. So today in this league, in this series, we have a set of amazing speakers who will give you the first-hand experience of what people are facing in Pakistan, especially. Okay. And I'd just like to give a brief introduction of our speakers and a brief and outline of what we are going to be discussing and talking today. So Pakistan's genesis involved uniting a territory which was divided by various cultural and ethnic differences on one uniform ground of religion. However, the experiment miserably failed. It began with the separation of Bangladesh, and Pakistan's failure continues to haunt us in the form of Baluch freedom struggle, Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, freedom struggle in the people in the Pak-occupied Kashmir area and Gilgit-Baltistan, and the identity quest of Sindh, which has been the cradle of civilization in the Indian subcontinent. Today, we bring you the insights of experts from these regions facing Pak armies, brutal suppression, and the killing of innocent civilians. So we have with us today Mr. Arif Azakia, who was the ex-mayor of Jamshed Town, Karachi. He is a human rights activist and a social media activist. He has been working and active with the United Nations Geneva and European Parliament Brussels. Then we have Baloch Bilal Sahab. Baloch Bilal is he's a journalist and a columnist and very active on the Baloch matters. We have Jamil Maqsood Sahab. He is Cultural Secretary Committee on the Foreign Affairs, United Kashmir People's National Party, UKPNP, and he is also functioning as a lobbyist with the European Parliament and United Nations Human Rights Council. Then we have Mr. Mir Salim Senai. He is the organizer, International Friends of Sindh, Geneva. And we have Fazlur Rahman Afridi Sahab. He is a journalist, writer, and a human rights activist. So without wasting much of your time, I'll begin with our today's session. And first and foremost, I would like to invite Arif Azakia Sahab to share his thoughts, experiences. He's already a celebrity, and we have heard and watched many of his events and programs here. So today we are very lucky to have you here with us, sir. So please, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Just one announcement. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. So I'll request all the audience to just turn off their microphones and their video. Only the active speaker is requested to keep their video and the microphone on. And if there are any questions, please send them to us in the chat box. We'll be taking them up after the program ends. Yeah. Arif sir.
Thank you very much, and it's been an honor to be part of this discussion with my distinguished colleagues and other audience people, Jamil Saab, Bilal Bhai, Salim Bhai, Fazlur Rahman Afridi Bhai are all the people that we have been working together for human rights issues of Pakistan in United Nations and European Parliament since years. And we have all been active for the issues of human rights in Pakistan. Well, in Pakistan, human rights do not exist. And in Pakistan, we don't know what human rights are because Pakistan is ruled by a brutal army. They don't believe in human rights. They don't believe in civil liberties. They don't believe in rights for common people. It's a bunch of people with lost identity because Pakistan was created by international powers, especially West. After World War, they wanted to divide India. They did not want to have an independent one India, and they wanted to create a buffer zone, a baby state for themselves to serve their purposes against communism, against potentiality of Indian superpower, they created Pakistan. Thus, Pakistan became a country, so-called nation without any identity, ashamed of their identity, the original identity, which was Indian, because all of Pakistanis are originally Indians and our DNAs are Indian. Whether we come from Sindh, we come from Balochistan, it is one way or other not Pakistanis. And Pakistani identity was created by West to mislead, not lead Islam or Muslims of the world. And we saw the failure of so-called two-nation theory in 1971 when 55% Pakistanis who created this country on the name of two-nation theory that Muslims cannot live with Hindus, and proved that that theory was wrong because Muslims could not live even with Muslims, and 55% Pakistanis gained independence from Punjabi army. And of course, there was a alliance of Punjabi army with Urdu-speaking Muhajirs, elites who migrated from India to Pakistan after creating Pakistan on the lands where there was no need of making a Pakistan, because Sindh, Punjab, and Pakhtunistan, they never voted for Pakistan. Pakhtunistan was led by Bacha Khan, Saradi Gandhi. Sindh was a very liberal and Sufi state, and Punjab was led by Unionist Party. Muslim League of India, All India Muslim League, had no roots in current Pakistani provinces. Balochistan had been an independent state all the way, and they had some agreements with British during British Indian period of rule. So Pakistan was created with some false identities, and thus could not survive for 25 years, and more than 55% Pakistanis left out Pakistan and became Bangladesh. The remaining Pakistan, POK, is an occupied land which was invaded by Pakistan army in 1948, Gilgit-Baltistan and POK. And then Balochistan was invaded in 1948 and obliged on gunpoint to sign Treaty of Accession with Pakistan. Sindh was befooled by saying in 1940 resolution, so-called Pakistan resolution, where in that resolution there was no mention of Pakistan at that time, which was later added. And Sindh was said that they will gain an autonomous position in independent Pakistan, but they never got it, and they were always occupied by Punjabi army. And KPK, which is current province Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, was originally part of Afghanistan and Greater Afghanistan, but because British had always had their fears that there will be an attack on British India from Afghanistan, so they created a fake line, like line of control in Kashmir. They created a line, Duran line, and divided the people, divided the lands of Pakhtuns. So Pakistan, with a fake identity, with a false identity, always looking for their roots in Arabs and Turks, while their roots were Indian, always humiliating the religion of their ancestors, which was Hinduism, which was Sanatan Dharam. And thus it is a country with a very miserable human rights record. All the remaining provinces of Pakistan, Sindh, Balochistan, and KPK, are asking for independence from the brutal Pakistan Army's rule. And we are looking towards a failed state which exports only one thing, that is terrorism, which foreign policy is based on use of terrorism and blackmailing and use of force, cross-border terrorism, state terrorism within Pakistan, And globally, Pakistan-sponsored terrorism is everywhere in the world. So this is a brief introduction of the country from where I come from. And it's really, they say that proud to be Pakistani. I've never been proud to be Pakistani. I am a Pakistani, but I'm not proud because my country has not given any productive thing to this world. We have always been an exporter of terrorism, and we have always been an exporter of intolerance. Day before yesterday, Pakistan's human rights minister spoke to United Nations Human Rights Council, Geneva, saying that Pakistan believes in coexistence and Pakistan believes in and targeted secularism of India. While Pakistan themselves, they don't know what secularism is. Last week, two Christian Pakistanis who are Pakistanis since centuries, indigenous Pakistanis, but they belong to Christian faith, and they were reciting their Bible in a park, and Muslims, they attacked them, and now these two Christian guys are facing Article 295C of blasphemy of Pakistan law, which goes till the end on the death penalty. So this is so-called secularism that they preach for India, but in Pakistan, the miserable situation of minorities asks international conscious and international powers to decide about Pakistan, that this country is good for nothing, and the world would be much better without this country called Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arif Sahab. Before we move on to our next speaker, I will request you to just throw some light on the issues in the Sindh region. So we hear about this Muhazir movement, which has been very active in Sindh, and besides that, the GSN movement was also active at one point of time. Could you please enlighten our audience a little bit more about that?
Well, the case of Sindh is very difficult to explain because Sindh, being major contributor to national exchequer since beginning, and it happened to be only seaport of the country. Now they have Gwadar in Balochistan also, but Karachi is still the major seaport of the region. 70% to national exchequer comes from Sindh province. Thus, Pakistan Army has controlled Sindh province since beginning through its agents in People's Party, a feudal-based party, and these feudal lords of People's Party have always been hands in hand with Punjabi Army since its creation, created during Ayub Khan's period by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, one of the biggest feudal lords of Sindh. And since Pakistan's inception, the chief minister of Sindh province has always been a Sindhi feudal lord. Major ministries of Sindh were held by feudal lords. So feudal lords with mullah have been exploiting Sindh since beginning. Then, of course, the Muhajir elite who divided India were also part and parcel of Pakistan Army. But after 1971, because before 1971, Punjabis were not in majority, so they needed the educated elite of Muhajirs. So they were partners of Punjabi elite, army. But after 1971, they did not need Muhajirs, so they disposed of. And then Muhajir Qawmi movement, which became Muttahida Qawmi movement, was created for the rights of Muhajirs. But one way or other, the local leadership, because the main leader, Mr. Altaf Hussain, was expelled from Pakistan and was obliged to live in exile in London. So all the elected members of parliament of MQM and the local leaders were slowly, gradually, by force, by fear, by blackmail, were taken under the control of notorious ISI, the mother of all terrorism. And Karachi was never at peace because of the activities of these so-called MQM leaders on ground. and they created an atmosphere of fear. Pakistan Army's regular unit, Sindh Ranger, Mehran Ranger, is in Karachi since 1991. Karachi is the only city in the world which has 60% land under the control of cantonment, direct rule of army. It happens to be only city in the world which has cantonment areas within the city, but universities are outside the city. And thus army through their rangers, their unit, Mehran Rangers, is ruling Karachi since 1991 under the umbrella of Sindhi feudal lords and MQM's local terrorist leaders, which are sitting in the lap of army. Even today, different factions of MQM were created and all are under the control of ISI. A wave of terror was created in Karachi under the designs of Pakistan's ISI, and thus Sindh is being exploited. Gas revenue, which provides to major part of Punjab, it comes from Sindh. Karachi port is the major business entity of Pakistan, and Karachi and Sindh are providing a major part to the national exchequer. I would give an example that there are so many markets in Karachi, and only one market, any market, gives more to national exchequer than entire city of Lahore. But still, Lahore has metro bus. Lahore has Orange Line metro train. Lahore has the best infrastructure of Pakistan, while Lahore provides nothing to national exchequer. And Karachi, the only mega city of the world without any transport system. The broken outdated mini buses run the transport system of Karachi. People have no safe drinking water for people in Sindh, entire Sindh, including Karachi being capital of Sindh. And they don't have any infrastructure in Karachi, while it provides a lion's share to national exchequer. So this is the situation of Sindh, occupied by Punjabi army through its stooges, Sindhi feudal lords and elite Mohajirs. Yes, Parnavji.
Yes. Thank you very much, Arif Saab. We'll come back to you with many more questions, especially regarding the conditions of the Sufi shrines in Sindh. But before that, I would like to invite Jamil Maqsood Sahab to come and share his experiences. Maqsood Sahab, over to you.
Thank you very much, Osana Foundation, for holding this important webinar on the situation and condition of ethnic minorities which are living under the administration of Pakistan. Some of important points are raised by Mr. Arif Jakia, but I would like to highlight the miserable situation which is existing in Pakistani occupied Kashmir, regions which are so-called Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan since October 1947, when the state of Jammu and Kashmir was invaded by the regular army of Pakistan. So I would like to give a very small brief about this conflict. That at the time of partition of British India, both the All India Congress and All India Muslim League had different position with regard to the final settlement of the princely states, because most of those princely states, which were totally 564 in total number, were landlocked, and some of them were in direct agreements with the British, and the state of Jammu and Kashmir was one of them. And when the British decided to depart from India and also decided to divide India on the basis of religion, the Congress took a position that it should be the right of the people to decide about the future of their states. While All India Muslim League said, no, it will be a lengthy process, so this right should be awarded to the princely heads, the rulers, the Rajas, Maharajas, so that they could speedily take the decision. And in this regard, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, who was His Excellency Maharaja Hari Singh, was given the total power to decide about the future status of his state. So Maharaja Hari Singh sent a letter to Pakistan, and it is called Standstill Agreement, that whatever relations the state of Jammu and Kashmir had with those areas which would be comprising a new country, namely Pakistan, they would remain as it is, mainly the post and some trades and oil and salt, etc., etc. And he requested the same standstill agreement to India. And India said that we need to negotiate more on the terms of this agreement. So on 12th of August, the government of Pakistan agreed standstill agreement with the state of Jammu and Kashmir, ruler Maharaja Hari Singh. And on 22nd of October, they plan to invade into Jammu and Kashmir with the help of tribals, which were also having a great number of military personnel in plain clothes, disguising as a modern day Taliban and non-state actors. So the people of Jammu and Kashmir, they resisted those invaders. Many non-Muslim state citizens were expelled from the areas which are today under the occupation of Pakistan, from Rawalakot, from Bagh, from Mirpur, from Zafrabad, from Sudnoti, Plandri, and some other areas. And they are still living in various areas of Jammu and also in mainland India. So India was asked to bring the conflict or bring the question of the final settlement of Jammu and Kashmir into the United Nations when the Maharaja of Jammu Kashmir acceded with India on 26th of October 1947. And the United Nations resolution and Pakistan never complied with the United Nations Security Council resolutions.
We can't hear you, Maqsood Saab. I think there is some problem in the voice on your end.
We have been suffering enormous human rights violations in both the regions, in Pakistan occupied Kashmir and in Gilgit-Baltistan. Since 1947, it is now 73 years have gone. And we have been advocating and highlighting these problems at the forum of United Nations Human Rights Council and also in the European Parliament and also in various international forums and various international capitals. And Pakistan today, they have imposed an act on our people which says that we are not allowed to take part in any activity which are prejudicial or detrimental to the ideology of Kashmir accession with Pakistan. Whereas in the Constitution of Pakistan, the Article 257 says, when the people of Jammu and Kashmir shall decide to accede with Pakistan, then government of Pakistan would talk about terms and conditions with that state, with the people of that state. It means in their own constitution, they are saying something else. And for us, the standard is something else. So under this specific clause, no person who do not subscribe the ideology of Kashmir accession with Pakistan can contest elections, can seek any job, or even can benefit a local development schemes like water supply schemes, like the construction of local roads, or like the availability of health and other facilities. So this is the present situation which the people of Pakistani occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan are suffering. So the Gilgit-Baltistan, until 2009, it was treated under FCR law, which was the law of 18th century that was created by the British to control the tribal areas adjacent to Afghanistan. That was the basically Pashtun areas. But that law was specially created for those areas. And I think I welcome Fazlur Rahman Saab. He will give more insight about the situation of Devon Line and across the Devon Line. And I would like to conclude with this remark that it was the responsibility of Government of India, the State of India, to push back those invaders from POK and Gilgit-Baltistan and to hold the control. But unfortunately, due to the era and phenomena of Cold War, the politics of two blocs, the United States of America and the United Socialist States of Russia, put this question on hold, and then Pakistan, which started Operation Gulmarg in 1947, Operation Gibraltar in 1965, Operation Topak in 1980s and 86, and Operation Kopema that led Kargil War in 1999, continue to hunt peaceful, democratic and secular voices in Jammu and Kashmir under Indian administration, and the same have been inflicted on the people of Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. Anyone who talk about peace, stability, development, human rights is called traitor, anti-Pakistan, anti-Islam, and many people have lost their life in this quest. And one of the most important person was Mr. Arif Shahid, who was the leader and chairman of All Parties National Alliance, was gunned down on 13th of May 2013 at the doorstep of his house in Rawalpindi, which is Garrison City. And thousands of youngsters who were very peaceful political activists were compelled to leave the country. And today you could find a person from Pakistan occupied Kashmir all over the world, even from Latin America to some islands of China and from Europe to Middle East. So the living conditions are made hell for the educated, peaceful political activists in Pakistan occupied Kashmir and also in Gilgit-Baltistan. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maqsood Saab. It was a very enlightening exposure of the things happening on the ground in POK and Gilgit-Baltistan area. So I would just like to highlight the fact that when it comes to the Indian administered Kashmir, there is so much information available on the online sources. You have research papers, policy briefs, media is covering things every day. Turkish TRT World is covering, New York Times is covering, everywhere you have information. But when it comes to Gilgit Baltistan or POK, we have absolutely nothing. So I would like to know, like before we move on to other speakers, I would like to know the situation of the human rights in those areas. Like what's the status about forced disappearances, targeted killings, and most importantly, in Gilgit Baltistan, especially after the Chinese intervention regarding CPEC, how are things happening? And one more thing about this, Pakistan settling Punjabi army officers in the POK area, especially to change the demography and radicalize the area. Okay, please,
Yes, actually, these both regions are like pushed behind the Iron Curtain. There is no indigenous media, no TV stations. There is no comparison between POK and Jammu and Kashmir. There is absolutely no comparison with regard to education, with regard to health facilities, with regard to infrastructure, or with regard to media publicity, or internet facilities, or with other freedoms available for the people. In these areas, absolutely the word freedom is literally banned. In a couple of years before, there were some writers who wrote books on local culture, local history, local traditions, and local problems. And all those books were banned and confiscated by the ISI, directly by them. Even they did not bother to ask local police or local administration to take the control of those books from the bookstores and other libraries, from college libraries. But they took direct action and threat all those people who could try to save those books. So this is one thing. The second thing is the China-Pakistan economic corridor is, we call it China-Punjab economic corridor because it has benefited Punjab at large and exploited the natural resources of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. At one end, Pakistan says that it is disputed region. On the other hand, all the major energy projects were installed in POK, mainly Neelam Jhelum hydro power project. Then Mangla Dam is already built there in 1966. Then Kohala hydropower project and many small dams are built there, but the local people are not provided with the sufficient energy needs. And when someone demands, they silenced through different means and methods. This is one thing. The other thing is there is no agreement between so-called government of Azad Kashmir and Water and Power Development Authority or CPAC authority, because CPAC authority is also headed by a military general. So they do not dare to ask them to negotiate on terms and conditions. And today, the people in Muzaffarabad are protesting that there is not enough water in both river Neelam and Jhelum. And the people which are living on the mountains on high altitude, there is no water for their daily needs. And even Save Neelam River and Jhelum River campaign is running in Muzaffarabad. But you could not find any news in any national newspaper of Pakistan. Only we could gather some speeches, some videos, some sit-in, some protests, some demonstrations through social media. Pakistan do not allow any dissenting voice to be heard, to be published by any newspaper. They feel it that it is international and it could hurt their interest in the region, and mainly in POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. And also in Gilgit-Baltistan, look, when they were creating the Amar Basha Dam, because of the landslide in Attaabad Jheel, there was huge property loss. And when Baba Jan and his friends and his colleagues start protesting for the relief and rehabilitation, they were put behind the bars and they were awarded 50 to 90 years jail in Gilgit-Baltistan. And even
No worries. We'll come back to you with more questions after the other speakers share their experiences and thoughts. Okay. Before that, I would like to welcome some of our eminent guests who have joined recently. Fazlur Rahman Afridi Sahab, most welcome to our organization and this webinar. Ambassador Trigunayat Sahab has joined, and welcome, sir. Al White has joined. Welcome, Al White. So now I would like to invite Baluch Bilal Sahab to share his experiences and thoughts on what's happening in Baluchistan. This is the place about which we hear almost every day about the forced disappearances, people being thrown from choppers to the ground, and endless tales of human rights violations. Baluch Bilal Sahab, please come and share with us your thoughts.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. As you know, that Balochistan is just like a burning in a place in Pakistan from more than 5 decades when the Pakistan occupied Balochistan in 1948. Pakistan army involved in kidnapping, disappearing, human rights abuses, so many things going on in Balochistan from the day when Pakistan army occupied independent Balochistan. It is not I am saying to you, this is documented officially by different international organizations, even within Pakistan. Human Rights Commission of Pakistan officially documented that Balochistan is burning. Baloch people are suffering. Baloch are being kidnapped. Baloch are being tortured. Baloch are being disappeared. There is no any single human rights abuse who is not being documented in Balochistan. Still today, unfortunately, it is continued. United Nations, international organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all of them openly showed their concern human rights abuses in Balochistan about Baloch people. Not only Baloch in Balochistan, but Pashtun and other minorities are also being targeted by Pakistani deep state in Balochistan. Time to time, Pakistan tried to make conflict Baloch people with the local Pashtun and others. But thanks to the Pashtun, they always help Baloch and remain peaceful with the Baloch people, and they support Baloch struggle. And we, Baloch people and Pashtun and other, we always raise our voice in different international forums like Araf Ajakia told in United Nations, in European Parliament, in other places. But unfortunately, this is the opportunity for me to, there are so many Indian friends and this Indian organization. India is a democratic country, must come forward to help not only Baloch, but all other upward voices in Pakistan. If you see other side, Pakistan flavoring Kashmir in Indian side Kashmir and telling to the world about everything, even the situation is more worse in Balochistan than Kashmir side of India. In Kashmir, we can see if something is going on there, you can see 10 to 12, 5 to 10 journalists, they are covering what's going on in Kashmir. But if you come to Balochistan, you cannot see such international independent media, they are covering the incident. Only those media personnel are allowed. They go under the cover of army, under the shadow of army, under the dictation of the army. No any individual journalist is allowed to go and cover any incidents, human rights abuses in Balochistan. But in Kashmir, things are not like that. But I don't understand why India is silent. Indian Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi just mentioned one time Balochistan. After that, I don't know what's happened. They are not talking about it. And some people are not agree with me, some people are be angry with me. When I listen, Indian Defense Advisor Dogal Saab, he said, if Pakistan do another Bombay, they will lose Balochistan. Why? We have to wait till another Bombay will come. We are suffering. We are suffering so badly. Till today, our 1,000 people are missing. There is no single day our mothers, our sisters, our brothers are crying, doing peaceful protest in front of different press clubs. Even our people marched more than 2,000 kilometers from Karachi to Islamabad just to release our innocent Baloch people. And recently, you people seen our 10 to 20 Baloch people, they went to Islamabad, they stayed there, they talked to the government, but result is nil. We listen every time Balochistan is going development something, but there is no development. You must know about China-Pakistan economic corridor. But if you go there by person, ask to the people, what is China-Pakistan economic corridor? They are crying. In Gwadar, Pakistan is showing a bright picture to the international world and within Pakistan and other people that Gwadar is improving, Gwadar is being developed. So just 2 days before, it is not me I'm saying, BBC is an independent international media group, media organization. BBC published a video blog in Gwadar. There is one Baloch woman. Her name is Mahatun. When journalists ask her, how you see Gwadar? It was good before, it is good now. She said to journalists, I need my old Gwadar. This Gwadar is very, very dangerous. We are losing our businesses. We are losing our lives. It is not me. They people, if I told you, if independent journalists go there, you people listen them. You people listen them clear, widely and openly. But unfortunately, like Jamil Maqsood said, and like you mentioned in Kashmir, New York Post, International, other independent journalists and media group are talking about the human rights issues, but why not in Pakistan or outside Kashmir? So this is the problem, that media is not free like in India and Pakistan. It is not today. From the decades, is there no any independent media. All news be censored before coming to publish. We don't see so many news. Even some news are blackout. Some news we don't receive. But today, thanks to social media, we are not only listening, we are watching what is going on in Balochistan. Like recently, you see our one sister, she died in Canada. When our body come to Balochistan, Pakistan tried to stop our people to go our funeral, but everybody seen by social media what happened. So this thing is still happening in Balochistan. There is no single day Baloch people are not being missed. Baloch people are not being abused. Even this is our land. This is Baloch land. When the time Pakistan and India were under the establishment, under the control of British, we had independent state. We had independent army. We had own money. But when this regime and this Pakistan army, fascist army come to Balochistan, you can see our situation is going day by day down. Baloch tried their level best to be part of Pakistan, but in Islamabad, deep state mind, they just understand one thing: only Punjabi can be patriot. Only Punjabi can be true Pakistani. Ataullah Mangal tried his level best. Even Bukti, who was murdered by Pervez Musharraf in 2006, Bukti was also chief minister. Bukti was also governor of Balochistan. So I am trying to tell you that Baloch tried their level best, but as I told, their mindset is different. They believe on two things: that Punjabi is a patriot, and they believe that if just put terrorism under the umbrella, you can get whatever you want. Because unfortunately, the time when the Russia was in Afghanistan, some big players teach them how to get money from the West, and how to be rich. They left, but Pakistan and Pakistan deep state is still playing with that mud. And that mud sometime come to Bombay attack in India, sometime in Kashmir, sometime everywhere around the world. So I just tell you one thing to all Indian friends: you people must raise your voices for we Baloch people. Not only we Baloch people, there are some other communities like their representative PTM Fazul Rahman is sitting here, Arif Ajeka, Muhajir, and Kashmiris, and our other Sindhi fellows. They are all suffering from states, because state has set their goals, state has set their circle. All political parties on their domain, unfortunately. And unfortunately, all political parties, they think and they believe if deep state will not support, we will not be come in power. This is not the problem of the political parties, because deep state has set a stage, a system in Pakistan. It's not like India, Bangladesh, and other countries. Their political parties are free; they can do whatever they want. Their movement for the democracy and everything. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, picture is different, not same like India, Bangladesh, and other countries. So deep state, even in Balochistan now, you see what they are doing. They are penetrating their religion extremism in Balochistan. There are more than 5,000 madrasas in Balochistan. Can you imagine 5,000 madrasas? And in each madrasa, more than 500, 600 children. And what they are being taught, you can understand. Because you Indians suffered in Kashmir. You know what's going on in Kashmir. This cancer is spreading, and I am worried that this cancer be in all world. Where we go then? I am not anti-religion, but if you say a small child that if you kill non-Muslim, you go to paradise, you get 72 virgin women, and you be in paradise forever, he will think time as you will tell him. And unfortunately, they brainwash little kids from 5 years. There is another issue. Well, I talk Balochistan, but I think this part is important. We have to understand that from 5 years they start teaching them when you kill innocent people, you go to paradise, and this is going on in all Pakistan and especially in Balochistan. They are training their another army in the shape of extremism. And this is very dangerous, not for we Baloch people, for Pashtun, for Sindhi, for all around the world. I feel this is a cancer. And we have to be together, and you Indian people must raise this issue with your government. You people, don't wait that another Bombay will happen, then Balochistan will go. No, you have to be faithful with the people. They believe on a democracy. They believe on a human rights. They believe on the freedom of speech. They believe on tolerance. They believe on all religion and everything. But as we see in Pakistan, they don't believe on democracy. They don't believe on tolerance. They don't believe on freedom of speech. They know one thing, only one thing, how to terrorize the people and how to stop their voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bilal Sahab. It was such a great learning experience for us to know about all these things happening in Balochistan. Before we move to Afridi Sahab, I would request you to share your thoughts on two questions. You mentioned about the 5,000 madrasas in Balochistan. So I would like to know just a bit more about the local syncretic and local traditions of Balochistan. I mean, we have heard that it's a very different form of Islam. It's very liberal and moderate, and still there are many Hindu temples which are very intact in Balochistan. And secondly, what kind of extremist terrorist organizations that are working in Balochistan? Like recently, we heard about the murder of the innocent Hazara Shia community in Balochistan. This is my first question. And second, I mean, how do you look at the future of Balochistan? Like Baloch community is spread out in Iran also, and I suppose that they're in Afghanistan also. So, is there a possibility of an independent Baloch country or not? And how does this whole thing work out? Please share your thoughts on these two questions.
First, you asked me about religious extremism. So everybody knows. I think in Baloch, not only Balochistan, Pakistan, who have a little knowledge and little interest in politics. So everyone knows Jaish al-Mohammed and Mustafa Saba and all other elements, where they are coming from. And I told you one thing, and I'm telling you one thing. Without state support, you cannot do a single thing. There is a saying, if area SHO, station house officer, if he don't want anything, it can't be possible in that area. A single person can sell an illegal cigarette even. So these are all elements like Sefa Saba, Lakshya Jangui, and other elements. Hafiz Saeed. Everybody knows where their roots are coming. Everybody knows. And the second question you said about the independent Balochistan, this is very tough question, but I must be honest. If international players means the country, they believe on a democracy, they believe on a human rights. If they want, like UAE, West, and even your country, India, as being the largest democracy on earth, if they want, it can be happen. But I repeat, like Dogal said, when second Bombay will happen, you will lose Balochistan. It's not work like that. They all work together. If they really need a peaceful region in that area, they must come forward to help Baloch people. I told you, we are not anti-religious people. We never anti-religious. There are hundreds mandars in Balochistan, even in Dera Bukti, and even in Lyari in Sindh, their majority people are Baloch. If you ask them, there are so many videos in internet. You can just type in YouTube, Hindus in Lyari, you can see what they are talking about Baloch people. They said, they are saying in the videos, we feel like we are in home. They are saying there are so many terrorist attacks in Karachi when people try to attack on Hindu temples and other temples, but Baloch, local Baloch, they come forward to help and secure our lives. Because we believe on tolerance, we believe our religion is different than Rawalpindi religion. There is a true Islam in Pakistan. Balochistan has a different theme of Islam. Punjab has a different theme from Islam. In NWPF in Pashtun has a different theme of Islam. But the basic dangerous theme is not coming from NWPF, Balochistan, Sindh or other. It is the mindset. I mentioned this mindset built when Russia come to Afghanistan. That school of thoughts being promoted, being cultivated, being spread all around, though, not only Pakistan, around the world, from that side. Then when Big Brother, United States bring all religious extremists in Pakistan, they train them against the name of so-called jihad. They left. They left very simply back to their countries. But they didn't realize that this will be changed in cancer. And some rogue elements, some deep state will turn this scenario on their own interest, own achievement, own goals, like you see in your country, in Pakistan, in Indian Kashmir side. These are the same flavors. These are the same school of thought. How a person can put bomb in his body and just blow up and just go to love to die. This is a process. It is not a simple thing we are thinking. It takes time to brainwash a little child. So hope you understand, as I told about the independence of Balochistan, I just say simply in 1-2 sentences, if big players want, anything can be happen, and it's happened before around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bilal Saab. I think it seems that the main root of the global terror problem lies in Pakistan. This whole radicalization business and the terrorism business has its headquarters in Pakistan. From what you speak, I feel that this is the most important takeaway. So now we move on to Fazlur Rahman Afridi Sahab to discuss a bit about the Durand Line problem, Afghan issues and Pashtun issues. Afridi Sahab, please, over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this August forum. There seems to be a misperception in the world, and especially in India also, that Pashtuns are a very happy minority in Pakistan. But as you know, that there was a Congress government in the former NWFP, now we call it Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, when the division of India took place. And just 1 year after, on 12 August 1948, Babra massacre took place, in which Pakistan killed 600 Pashtuns, and more than 1,800 Pashtuns were injured. After that, the Pashtuns tribesmen were used in the Kashmir, which also resulted in the massacre of Kashmiri people. And after that, there was a relevant calm in our region. But recently, after 9/11, in the last 20 years, Pashtuns have suffered a lot. In the so-called war on terror, Pakistan and its army, to earn dollars from the West and the USA, they oppressed the innocent Pashtun people, especially in the tribal areas. You will be astonished to know that most of the time our friends talk about Balochistan, but in the 20 years, Pakistani army has used gunship helicopters, 16 jet bombers, and artillery on innocent Pashtun ethnic minority. You will be astonished to know that in the last 20 years, almost 87 terrorists and Taliban leaders were killed. Almost all of them were killed by American drones. Not a single terrorist was killed by Pakistan army in those operations. And you will also be astonished to know that about 75,000 Pashtuns have been killed during the last 20 years. The Pakistani media, Pakistan army, and Pakistani government confirm it. But nobody says who these people are. Most of the people, more than 95% of these people who were killed in the so-called war, they were Pashtuns. Another fact about this oppression of Pashtuns, 32,000 Pashtuns are still missing. We are documenting these cases. You would have heard about PTM, Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, which was almost 3 years ago in 2018, in January 2018. It was for the first time that the Pashtuns took their case to the international community, and especially at the United Nations. We are submitting our cases under special procedures to the United Nations Human Rights Council, to different working groups on enforced disappearances, and especially on extrajudicial killing and torture also. So this oppression is continuing even now. The people, the terrorists like Ehsanullah Ehsan, who openly claimed the killing of the innocent school children in the APS Peshawar massacre. He also took responsibility for the attack on Malala Yousafzai, the Nobel Peace Laureate. But still, he remained a VIP guest of the Pakistani army. He remained in the Pakistani garrison for quite a long time. And recently he escaped. I don't think he was escaped, but it was Pakistan army who transferred him to another country to continue terrorist activities, not only in Pakistan, but in Afghanistan and also in the region. So this massacre of Pashtuns, which started in Babra in 1948, it continues even now. You would have heard of Khaisur massacre, where Pakistani army opened fire on innocent PTM workers, as I mentioned earlier, Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, in which 15 to 16 people were killed and 5 were injured. And recently, the government has removed all the cases against those which were implicated in that, which shows that it was the Pakistani army which was responsible for that massacre. Besides that, the Wana massacre. Recently, again, we see an increased Taliban activity in ex-Fatah, which is now merged into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. There are increased target killings in which innocent Pashtun people are being killed. There are enforced disappearances taking place in this region. And recently, you would have heard of 4 NGO workers and women workers. The NGO name is Sabaun, were killed by these Taliban, the proxies of Pakistan Army. It was on 22nd February. It's this month, 22nd February 2021. And a few months ago, another NGO worker was killed, named Nahid, was killed in Mirali, North Waziristan. So the situation is really, really very precarious. And Pakistan Army, which is involved in gross human rights violation, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, not only against Pashtuns, but the Baloch people, the Sindhi and Kashmiris also. It's not accountable to anyone in this country. And it's not even accountable to the international community. Whenever there are some important UN meetings, whenever there is a meeting of FATF, it promulgates some laws and arrest some terrorist personalities and ban organizations. But when then that meeting is finished, again these terrorists are released, and the terrorist organizations emerge with another name. You know, whenever the Pashtun Tahap movement, it raises its voice in different gatherings, immediately the FIRs are registered against them. The people are identified and then they are arrested. But when it the Taliban and other terrorist groups who are openly speaking to some gatherings in Balochistan and Quetta, and even in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in different cities like Mardan, Peshawar, Sawabi, Dar Ismail Khan, no action is taken against these terrorist outfits. So it shows that the government or military, actually, the military which control this country, actually the parliament is a rubber stamp used by the military. So we don't believe that there is democracy in this country. This is the army which control foreign policies to the economic policies of this country. So either we think if they don't take actions against these terrorist outfits, either the state is responsible or the state is unable to control these people. So the international community in both the cases should take note of it and make this government and make this army accountable and on the other hand, we are talking about the curfew in Kashmir, Indian controlled Kashmir. But for the last 20 years, the tribal areas and even the Balochistan is for a longer period of time, it's under curfew. The people are living in a curfew-like situation in those areas. There is a complete media blackout in ex-Fatah. No journalist no human rights activist, even the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan cannot enter these areas to investigate what's happening there. So I think the situation is really, really very dangerous, not only for the Pashtun ethnic minority in the region, but for the whole world, especially Afghanistan and India, because this increase in the Taliban activity on both sides of the Durand line shows that another great game is about to start in this region, and Pakistan is partnering with some other countries like Iran, China, and Russia uh, to take out Americans from Afghanistan and again impose Taliban on Afghanistan and in the region. So international community and United Nations, the European Union, and especially India, which is a neighbor which is affected by all these terrorist organizations directly, should take notice of it, should be proactive, and work with local communities to eliminate these terrorists from the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janab Afridi Sahab. Before I move on to our next session, that is the question and answer round, I have, I would like to request you to address these two aspects. First of all, we see that Pashtuns also form a major chunk of the Pakistani army. Okay? And so, with this, given this thing, I mean, how do you look at the future of this whole Pashtun issue, like the Durand line issue? Is there a possibility of, how do you look at it? Should there be a separate independent, nation? I mean, or this FATA region should join Afghanistan? Do you think that there's any possibility for that? And secondly, I mean, you just mentioned about the new players like Russia, Iran, and China in this region, and maybe Turkey also. This is because, from my understanding, I see that Turkey is also emerging as a major player in the region. How do you see these dynamics playing? I mean, the Turkey, Iran, China, Russia, Pakistan in this area, and the first one, the future of the Pashtun issue.
It's a very important question. First, the Turkey, yes, of course, the Pakistani relationship and this the new bloc which is emerging, the region, the China, Iran, Pakistan, and Turkey. That's very important, and it will have great implications for the region, and especially for India and Afghanistan. Recently, a Chinese terrorist group was arrested in Kabul. So that shows that China is not only supporting the Pakistan, which is a sponsor of terrorism, but it seems to be involved directly now in terrorist activities. And the same is with Turkey, what's doing in Syria and in other regions, in Libya also. It's very active. So the region, especially Afghanistan and India, should be aware of it and should have a counter strategy for it. Regarding Pashtunistan or Great Afghanistan, the inclusions of Pashtuns into Afghanistan or the creation of a separate state, I think it's too early. But one thing is very important. With the emergence of Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, the Pashtuns for the first time have shown to the world that they are not satisfied in Pakistan. They are not satisfied with the parliamentary system, the parliament of Pakistan. They are not satisfied with the judiciary of Pakistan. They are not satisfied with the Pakistani army. They are unhappy about what is happening with them. It's not only that a genocide of physical genocide of Pashtuns is taking place, but the cultural genocide is also continuing for quite a long time. We cannot speak in our own language. So the PTM has shown to the world that we are not satisfied with Pakistan. We are not satisfied in this country. It's for the first time. It's almost 3 years, but the doubts are being created in the minds of all the civil servants, all the Pakistani army officers who happen to be Pashtuns, that there is something wrong in this country, and there is something wrong which is happening with the Pashtun people, because the figures I have just given you earlier that will show that Pashtuns have been persecuted in this country, and not only persecuted, but even our resources are being looted and plundered by both Pakistan and China. So there is unsatisfaction. The Pashtuns are showing this unsatisfaction in this state, and I think in the future we will look into the event, how it happened, how the Pakistani army react to the emergence of this civil rights movement. It will pave the way for perhaps a new state of Pashtuns separately, or to be merged with Afghanistan. But it's not still clear what path it will take.
Thank you very much, Afridi Sahab. Now I would like to open the house for the questions, but before that, we'll just have two expert comments from our special guests. Ambassador Trigunayat, if you're here, would you like to share some thoughts on like what we just discussed? You have had a long ambassadorial career, and you have dealt with all these issues and their geopolitical repercussions at the global level. So, I mean, we would like to hear something from you.
Thank you very much, Abhinavji. It's heartrending to hear the plight of our friends from certain parts in Pakistan. I mean, we are all aware about their plight, that how the deep state, especially the military and the intelligence in Pakistan, has not only been targeting or promoting terrorism across the border, but within the country itself, they are terrorizing their own people. So that is very unfortunate. And I think that this is an unsustainable situation. Of course, it is difficult to fight against the might of the state, especially in today's world, when you have various countries having their own parochial and myopic interests in mind, and they sustain a regime that becomes rogue in the process. But that is how the real politics works. The world needs to know the plight of the people. The world needs to understand what these ordinary, innocent civilians are suffering, why they are being subjected to underdevelopment, why their human rights are being violated day in, day out. We have been hearing so many horror stories, and really my heart goes out to it. And I'm quite sure that if they continued and persist, and if the Pakistani state continues to make these kind of follies, in my view, it would become very much unsustainable in times to come, while the international community really wakes up to it and not only looks at it from a point of view of political expediency or a geopolitical outreach, as several of the countries mentioned before have been indulging and bolstering the regime's resolve to mute the dissent in the country and not address the real developmental and cultural issues because of which the people have been revolting and are recoiling under. So I hope, and it was quite really disheartening in many ways to listen to these horror stories. And I can only wish them well, and I hope that they find friends across the world who will stand up for them and eventually focus it so that the situation gets ameliorated. Whether they get their autonomy, whether they are able to get independence, will depend on the way the Pakistani state eventually works out. So I only have this comment at the moment. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Trigunayat. And Daniel has joined us from DC. And Daniel, I suppose he has been a witness to how Pakistan is very conveniently able to sell its lies to the American lawmakers and cleverly hide these, these gory tales of brutal human rights oppression in its own land. Okay, would you like to share something about, this Pakistan's lies and propaganda drive in Washington DC, Daniel? Because you have the first-hand experience of all these things there in DC.
Thank you, Abhinav. I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in here, and I want to thank you, Usinus Foundation, and the speakers for an excellent, very thought-provoking presentation today. A couple of things when it comes to Pakistan-U.S. relations, they have been deteriorating for quite some time now. And Pakistan really doesn't have too many friends left in Washington, and quite frankly, not too many friends left on the Hill. And that's, part and parcel with their own behavior and activities and terror sponsoring, financing, harboring of terrorists, and continued engagement of cross-border infiltration in Kashmir, their activities in Afghanistan. That being said, there is, while the government of Pakistan's relations with the U.S. has deteriorated, and while Pakistan itself has lost a lot of friends in D.C., there are emerging third-party civil society types of organizations and groups that are trying to prop up and basically do the PR work of the government of Pakistan. For instance, the Stand With campaign, which is has links to the Pakistani government, but it's clear that it is an American, Pakistani-driven campaign and organization. And of course, they don't disclose their donors, they don't disclose who's in charge of the organization, their board, or anything like that. It's all hidden and non-transparent, and that's one of the things that the Hindu American Foundation and some of us have been trying to uncover or expose. But where the Pakistani government has really failed, you see this emerging American Muslim organizing around the issue, and not even Pakistanis, not even Kashmiris. I mean, you have Turks and Azeris in America talking about Kashmir. You have Muslims from Arabia all over the world talking about Kashmir, because it's a rallying cry to help organize the community, which is all part and parcel with bashing India, making India look like it's the bad guy here, and quite frankly, sometime, but Americans and the American government has a higher expectation of India than we do of Pakistan. Is that right? No, but do we expect Pakistan to be a democracy? No. Do we expect them to be a terror state? Yes. But they kind of continue to get away with that because the expectations are so low. And that's the problem. That's the policy problem. We need to dissect that mentality like, oh, well, we know Pakistan is a terror state, so they can go ahead and continue to behave like a terror state. No, that's not right. So that's part of the thing. That's some of the things that we're working on here in the United States to expose. But I would say that where the Pakistani government has failed to maintain relationships and strengthen relations with the U.S. simply because of their terror support, At the same time, civil society, American Muslim organizations, non-Kashmiri organizations, and non-Kashmiris are rallying to the defense of Pakistan in a way that I've never seen before in my tenure working on these issues in the last 3 years.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thanks a lot. So now we have a couple of questions for our esteemed speakers. I'll just read out one by one. First one is there any way to prevent Pakistani army from exercising direct or indirect control over democratic government? Anyone who would like to take this question? Arif Saab, Bilal Saab, Maqsood Saab, Afridi Saab. Any of you like you can take this question. Whoever wants to take it. Yeah, please, Arif Saab, yes.
I think to stop Pakistan Army's brutalities, somebody has to come forward. Because in 1971, when the genocide of Bengalis started and women, hundreds of thousands of women were raped, it could not have been stopped if Indian Army had not intervened. Because if Indian Army had not intervened, Bengalis could not have achieved independence. The brutalities of Punjabi army could not have been stopped if Indian government had not intervened to save them. So until and unless a superpower comes, Baloch, Sindhis, Pakhtuns and Kashmiris will keep fighting, keep struggling single-handedly, and Pakistan army with the resources of 220 million people will keep crushing them. So we need a support, external support to contain this army. It is not only stopping this army, it is bring them to justice, to International Court of Justice under war crime tribunals like Bosnian genocide generals of Serbia were convicted in International Court of Justice for war crimes. Pakistan army current and retired generals have to be brought in front of International Court of Justice for war crimes, and it is not possible without West or India, because it is not only Punjabi army, but they have support from Turkey and China also. So it won't be possible to contain, to stop the brutalities until India or West comes forward and supports us.
Thank you very much, Arif Saab. Yeah, Jamil Saab, yes, yeah, please continue.
Just add a few words, as Mr. Ajakia has said, but I think it's very difficult to have democracy in Pakistan. Democracy. Actually, it's the army which is controlling everything. For army, it's very difficult because it's involved in gross human rights violations, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. And the moment the power is transferred to democratic government, I think immediately there will be a lot of generals who will be tried for the crimes they have committed. So I think there is a need of a structural change. I think first democracy by all the politicians, and there's also a need for a federal democracy which is based on on consensus that all the ethnic minorities have the same rights. But I think it seems to be impossible with the army. And with its expenditure, which is astronomical, because in Pakistan the politicians are accused for corruption and for mismanagement, but actually it's the army, and it's the expenditure on the army which is the main reason for all these which Pakistan is unable to pay. So it has become a white elephant. You can't do away with it. If you do away with it, you are doomed. And if you keep it, you are doomed. So for me, I think there seems to be no future for Pakistan. It's doomed in any way, whether a democracy come, it is doomed. Whether the army remains, it is doomed. So it's a country, there's so much expenditure that this economy and this country cannot sustain this expenditure of the Pakistani army. So it needs to either expand into Afghanistan or India or get another country for itself to sustain its expenditure, or to start another war, another great game in the region, so to earn the dollars from the Americans and the European Union from the West. So I think it seems in the present situation, it seems to be difficult. And I think India should be aware of it and should take action to see the situation and what will happen in case Pakistan is dismantled or Balkanized. I think it should be managed. The chaos has to be managed rather than if it is Balkanized. The repercussions will be very dangerous for the region, especially for India.
Thank you very much, Maqsood Saab. Anyone else who wants to take up this question?
I would like to say, okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, like you question, I think our fellows didn't understand, the two speakers didn't understand what was your question. You asked about inside political parties, how they be far, how they be independent from Pakistan army, is it? So I think it is possible. It is totally possible when these political parties understood one thing, that real power comes from masses, not from Rawalpindi or Deep State. If they understood this theory, this theme, that we can survive, we can be independent, we can go to be a prime minister or a president without Deep State, and it is possible. But unfortunately, they have a bond. As I said, Deep State has set their games, their plans. Like no one cannot go on that circle and domain. The Deep State has set their domain, their circles. If any political party, the politician wanted to jump or try to go forward, they will take them back and they will demolish them and they will make them disappear from the real politics. But if one day all political parties, I mean, there are two major parties in Pakistan so far, you can say they are democratic. People's Party and Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Group. If they both understood one theory, one theme, that we can come on power without Deep State support, without any military support, it is possible. They can definitely come, but the initiative has to come from the local ground parties like a People Party and PML Nawaz Group.
Thank you very much, Bilal sir. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll just go on to the next question. Before that, I would like to welcome Major General Anuj Mathur. He has just joined us. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Yeah. And our next question is from Venus. Venus is with the Epoch Times. It's a very famous media outlet in the US. So the question is there any list of media personnel or media entities, non-partisan, as well as the state-sponsored, existing in POK and Gilgit-Baltistan, or a list of civil society entities from the region? What's the Chinese investment in POK and Gilgit-Baltistan beyond CPEC? Anyone who wants to take this question? Yeah, please, Maqsood sir, go ahead. Yes.
I think he is muted. I think open.
Yes, Maqsood sir, just unmute yourself, Maqsood sir. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes, it's done. Thank you. no, there is no such a media organization working. Some little divisional newspapers are being published from Zafrabad, one or two from Zafrabad, one is from Rawalakot, and one is from Mirpur division. And all other newspapers which represent POK are being published from Rawalpindi. And interestingly, their declaration is issued by the Kashmir Council, which is headed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So if they try to publish the factual news or factual reports, their declaration would be immediately cancelled. So whatever they publish in the favor of Pakistan. What is they toe their publishing policy with the official policy of the government of Pakistan. This is one thing. I would like to add 2, 3, 4 points. When we analyze internal domestic stability and democracy within Pakistan, we have to see that soon after the death of Ziaul Haq, when slain Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto took the charge, she invited the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. So that was the first peaceful gesture given to the Indian state after many, many years of the creation of Pakistan. And after that, it was Mian Mohammad Nawaz Sharif, Pakistan Muslim League leader, who not only invited Vajpayee Sahab to Lahore and also signed the declaration, Lahore Declaration, to create a peaceful and conducive environment between both the countries. And also, the current Prime Minister, Mr. Modi ji, visited Lahore at the invitation of the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mian Mohammad Nawaz Sharif. So, it was the civilian who were trying to extend olive branch to India, but they were dismissed, they were destabilized, and their peaceful efforts were sabotaged by the military establishment. And when military establishment took their direct control, for instance, Musharraf, he took 2 steps ahead than what Mian Nawaz Sharif was doing or what Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto was doing. He extended more incentives to the government of India on the front of Jammu and Kashmir, on the front of LOC, opening LOC for the trade purposes, opening LOC for people-to-people contact. And it was also supported from the European Union, from Britain, and from the United States. But we have to see, and it is also into the best interest of India to support democratic movement of Pakistan and to have the real democracy in the political parties as well. Because right now, these political parties, which are the major political parties like Pakistan People's Party or Muslim League, they have become the regional parties. Like Pakistan People's Party is holding the control of Sindh province, PMLN is holding the control of Punjab, which is the largest province of Pakistan. And there are also some regional parties from Pakhtunkhwa and from Balochistan. But the question of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan is entirely different. We have only one local party. It was All Jammu Kashmir Muslim Conference. And now we have a Pakistan People's Party, we have a Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, we have a Pakistan Muslim League, we have all the Pakistani branches operating in Muzaffarabad and in Gilgit-Baltistan, and eventually they are given the power. So that the state of Pakistan could have always upper hand in the policy making areas. So we are totally disenfranchised. Practically the people of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan have been excluded from the democratic process. So whatever it is process, we are excluded because it is the elections which are fought between all the political groups and political parties based in Pakistan. So this is what we need to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maqsood Sahab. Thank you very much. So we don't have much time, so we'll just take a few more questions. We have a question from Mr. Zita Sheikh, and the question is, what is the stand of JKLF towards the poor development state of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan? It's a very interesting question. Who would like to take this question? The stand of, yeah, please, Maqsood Saab.
Of course, because I'm the principal
Yes.
party from Jammu
Yes.
and Kashmir. So
Yes.
and I know I have studied, and for a very little time I have been the part of JKLF, so I know very well. JKLF is like the proxy organization of Pakistani deep state, as Lashkar-e-Tayyiba is, as Jamaat-e-Islami is, as Jaish-e-Mohammed is, Harkat al-Ansar, Harkat al-Mujahideen, Tariq al-Mujahideen, Al-Badr Mujahideen, Al-Shams Mujahideen. So it is one of them. So they only are using that they want a democratic state, they want secularism, but in their own constitution they have changed that religion is their soul. So JKLF practically is not a political party. It's not a political movement. It is an invisible extended hand of the GHQ of Pakistan. So it's very simple.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question is, was Karima Baloch murdered? Yeah, Arif Saab, yes, please.
Karima Baloch was murdered by ISI, no doubt about it. ISI issued a list under the name of EU Disinfo Lab of people, human rights activists working against Pakistan Army, exposing Pakistan Army. So these people, anyone who works for the human rights of Pakistanis, who exposes Pakistan Army's brutalities, it is enemy of Pakistan.
Yes.
So of course, we all human rights activists are receiving threats. We are receiving warnings. And Karima used to get warning. Karima, before being murdered, she clearly told in one of her statements that Canada has issued visas, residence visas to many retired Pakistan Army generals who committed genocide of Baloch people. And they are living in colonies of residential colonies in Canada. So, of course, there is no doubt that a respectable lady who left Pakistan to save her own life was killed by ISI in Canada. There is no doubt about it.
Thank you very much, Arif Saab. Just a related question to this. We really get started when the human rights activists get killed in places like Canada, Sweden. These are the places which are like doyen of human rights. They give big lessons to India, talking sometimes about the farmers' protest or maybe about the Kashmir lockdown. What's wrong with them? I mean, what's happening in Canada? Why Canada is suddenly tilting towards a very strong and a very extremist breed of political Islamism? And they are hands in glove with all kinds of terrorists, be it Khalistanis, be it ISI, or be it Jamaat-e-Islami. What's happening there? What's happening with the West?
Appeasement politics, the way Indian governments also persistently since 1947 till 2014, appeasement politics, vote bank politics. There are so many Sikhs and Muslims in Canada, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wants to keep his vote bank intact. So it is an appeasement politics. Otherwise, no Muslims of Canada, they are struggling for Sharia law in Canada. What makes them struggling for Sharia law? If they love so much the Sharia law, they should migrate to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey, where they can enjoy their Sharia law. The same thing with Khalistani people. There is no movement of independence Khalistan in India, where it should be. It is in Canada. So I think that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should give one province to Khalistanis and one province of Canada to Islamists to create their governments there and stop interfering. Now tell me, the brutal human rights violations going on in Pakistan, hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis, Baloch, Pashtun, Sindhis, Muhajirs, Kashmiris have been killed by this army. Nobody is speaking about it. No Canadian member of parliament speaks about it. But for India, where there are very minor issues with such a huge country, there are some farmers protest. Being a human rights activist, I never stop anyone to protest. It is their right. But there is difference between riots and protest. Riots, foreign sponsored riots are going on the name of farmers' protest in India. And then MPs of England and Canada are interfering in internal matters of India, which I condemn.
Thank you very much, Arif Saab. Thank you, thank you. So,
Can I add something?
yeah, please do, please go ahead. Yes.
Like you asked about Canada, I think our His Excellency Ambassador said before, international diplomatic interests come first for all countries. We have to understand this. Not only Canada, but if I see Switzerland, a country from very close to my house, in Switzerland, Baramdag Bukti has applied for the exile more than 10 years. But Switzerland government is denying. Myself, anyone can differ his ideology, Baramdag party ideology and anything. But if I say Baramdag life is not danger, it is not true. Baramdag life is totally in a danger. Not only Baramdag, but Baramdag other fellows, they are living in Switzerland, but Switzerland is denying their visas. Not only this, Switzerland detained one of Baloch human rights activist Maran Murray with his children, innocent children, and they put ban for 10 years. Can you imagine this? And Switzerland claimed to be a country of neutral country in the world. Not only this, I am a victim of myself in Thailand. When Thailand intelligence arrest me, our fellows are with me that time. I mean, Sindhi, Kashmiri. So we have to understand that in diplomacy, diplomatic interests come always first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. Is it true that China has got free hand over all natural resources of Gwadar, including fish, without paying anything except through CPEC project?
Yes, it is true. And I am telling you, China will take everything in Gwadar. If there is no resistance, China will take each and everything in Gwadar. And be sure China is not in Gwadar for development.
Okay, thank you.
Chinese never give free lunch to anyone.
Thank you.
Chinese has their own intention. Chinese want all, not only all Gwadar, but all Pakistan. China now is giving like free meal to Pakistan. But when time comes, he say you have to pay. And Pakistan has nothing to pay. And definitely she will claim for Gwadar and Gwadar properties, Gwadar land, Gwadar port, so many things from Gwadar. But I must, through this webinar, I must say to Chinese authorities, Chinese are in dream. Baloch will resist.
Thank you.
Baloch not indicate to Pakistan.
Bilal sir, one related question. Is Pakistan also borrowing high-grade surveillance technology of censorship and state control from China and using that in Balochistan?
So far, no, but they are, this thing in their pipeline, because
Okay.
they now they are going to start a cricket match in Gwadar, and they made a cricket stadium in Gwadar, and I heard through news and through reliable sources that China promised to Pakistan that we will give you intelligence gadgets and intelligence technology to protect Chinese interest and Pakistan interest in Gwadar.
Thank you. And one more, like we have this very interesting question, and this is about the Punjabi Han contract marriage. I've heard about this, but I don't have much knowledge in detail about this. Any of you would like to share some thoughts on this? Punjabi Han contract marriage. I mean, we hear tales of Pakistani girls, especially the Christian minorities, being trafficked to China. Yeah, please, Maqsood sir. Yes.
And all those stories and the plight of those innocent girls were also published by the BBC News. Their interviews were published. Their videos were broadcasted and spread it all over the social media. But soon after it was came into the limelight of the people, and the civil society organizations and human rights organizations took the cognizance, they were stopped. They were immediately stopped, and all those videos and all those statements were disappeared from the social media domains. So that is very common phenomena that those innocent women and young girls were trafficked to China, and according to their oral statements, their video statements, they were used in brothels. So this was very unfortunate things that happened with the poor and marginalized and ethnic and religious minorities in Pakistan.
Thank you, thank you. And then we have a question about a very Arif Sab, yes, please. Yes, Arif Sab.
We have to understand that we are facing the enemy, which is most begharat group of people in the world, Pakistan Army. They have used in the past rape as war tool, and now they are using this. There are independent reports of NGOs that on average there are 3 girls per day being kidnapped and converted by force into Islam in Pakistan. Thousands of Pakistani girls, particularly minority girls, were exported to China. There are independent reports. Because China has very strict policy of childbirth. So these girls are sent there as sex slaves, and once they are not used as sex slaves, their organs are being traded also. And this all is on record. I'm sorry to say, but my army is the most begharat group of people on this earth.
Thank you very much, Arif sir. Thank you, thank you. These are the tales like which are really, shaking all of us from within. And definitely we need more research, more work, and more action. It's not just about research and talking, being a talk shop. We need more action on all these fronts. We have a very interesting question about a phenomena which has come up more recently. Radicalization of kids through these Turkish dramas like Dilris Ertugrul and all. In Kashmir, I have seen this drama has been majorly used to radicalize the young generation, and just so now the people in Kashmir, they are talking about visiting the graves of Caliph Uthman. So what's happening in Pakistan? Like anyone who would want to speak about this? President Erdogan's new this geopolitical machinations through this drama series.
Is there anybody?
And please feel free to go ahead.
Oh, okay. We can say that this is very old policy of Pakistan to use religion as a weapon and terrorism as a foreign policy. So yesterday was Osama bin Laden, and today is Ertugrul, and tomorrow would be somebody else. So their main aim and objectives are to use and to glamorize and to eulogize all those people which can be used to radicalize, to brainwash their young children, because the young children are far from reality. They do not have enough knowledge of history, what happened during the reign of Ertugrul, or during the reign of Osman Caliphate, what was the style of their governance. So we are very much aware about the style of the governance, what was happening during the reign of Aurangzeb. that was the same style when they were killing their brothers, their sisters, even they did not spare their father. So their heroes are the killer of their own brethren and sisters and their own kids and kin.
Thank you very much, Maqsood sir. We can just take one more question. Let me see if yes, we have a question from Mrityunjay Dubey. Question is to Afridi Sahab. How do you see the role of social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram? It's in Balochistan. I think it's about Balochistan, the question. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in particular in Balochistan, provided the Western countries, primarily the US, is accelerating developments in artificial intelligence, trying to dominate the flow of information their way. What challenges do Baloch people face amidst world digital post-COVID-19?
think this question is for Mr. Bilal Baloch.
Yes, yeah,
Please.
Mr. Bilal. Yeah.
Well, as I told you that before, when Karima Baloch body come in Balochistan, Pakistan army totally tried to stop and shut down domestic media, local media, but all world could see and seen already that what happened exactly. We published all the material, all the videos in social media. And social media, it is a big, great tool for the people, especially we can say uphold voices in Balochistan, not only Balochistan, in Pakistan. And we are using these tools. And I think there is no any mechanism in Pakistan to stop these tools. We Baloch people, every Baloch people in Balochistan become a citizen journalist. They just record the video, and whenever they get internet, they can publish in social media. And I think due to this social media, government is suffering so badly in Pakistan. As we know, there is no independent media exists in Pakistan. So this is a good sign, good news for not only Baloch, for Pashtun, for everyone, that social media tools we have been using and we will use it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bilal sir. We have one last question, and that's from Indu. And I think, the question is how India could be pivot at international level, particularly in the UNSC, as being the largest democracy and a major geopolitical power in South Asia. I would just like to add something to this question that, recently we saw that Chinese misadventure led to more than 45 casualties of their soldiers in the Ladakh heights. India gave a befitting reply. Today, India is a major military power, and America's most important and the most powerful ally in this region as a part of its Quad strategy also. So, as an emerging, or rather not emerging, I would say, in fact, as a world power, what role India can play in ameliorating these issues in Pakistan? Like, as we know that Pakistan is a global problem, and West has become completely dysfunctional and silent in especially addressing these issues. India being a neighbor, India being a direct victim of Pakistan's terrorism, what should India do and what role they can play? Yes, Arif sir, please.
I think that India has to be very careful in its approach. Defense, offense is the best defense. This should be the policy of India. Pakistan openly says that we will support Kashmiris and we will give all the support to Pakistan, to Kashmiris. Pakistan openly speaks for minorities of India who are enjoying their every right in India. There is 5 times azan on loudspeaker in India. There are no major issues of minorities in India, yet Pakistan keeps screaming about minority rights in India. So India has to come openly in support of Pakistani Sindhis, Pakhtuns and Baloch, and India has to solve Kashmir issue also. This should be the policy, because India has to remember that Pakistan is working against the existence of India, against the integration of India. Pakistan is persistently working on this. Ghazwa-e-Hind is the basis of Pakistan's every policy. So India has to come openly out and give every support to Pashtuns, Baloch and Sindhis in Pakistan to attain their rightful independence. Because Sindhis, Baloch are fighting their war for independence, and Pashtuns are asking for their peaceful right to finish Durand Line and make a greater Pakhtunistan or whatever. But Pakhtuns are being targeted very intelligently by Punjabi army. They are branded terrorists and they are victims. So this is very dangerous situation, and India has to come openly out, and the time to stay silent is over. Pakistan makes speeches in United Nations Security Council again and again on India's internal matters, but India refrains. I know that now India has come up, and the day before yesterday in United Nations Human Rights Council, India brought up Pakistan's internal issues, and India has to come openly in support of Pakistan's suffering minorities, ethnic and religious minorities.
Thank you very
I
much.
think
Yeah.
I'll add a few things. This is Fazlur Rahman Afridi.
Yeah, please do.
Of course, India is a main regional and international power. Nobody can deny it. But India has to assert itself and get out of the past. It has to be, as just Arif Ajatia has said, that it has to be offensive. And it needs a strategy for these regions in Pakistan, because on ad hoc basis you cannot achieve your objectives. So India needs to have a permanent policy as a regional power. It has responsibility as one of the biggest democracy in the world, because in your neighbor, in your backyard, there is a state which is not democratic, controlled by an army which is radicalized and which is not only a threat to the region, but to the whole world. So India needs to be offensive, assertive in this region, and particularly in Pakistan and Afghanistan, to protect not only the interests, its own interests, but the interest of the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afridi Saab and Arif Saab. Okay. So I think we have come to the end of our today's very enlightening and very, I would say, emotional webinar. Okay, we didn't know much about all these things. Okay, and I think it's a great learning session for all of us. So I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists for giving their time and sharing their emotions and their expressions, their thoughts, and all their love for India. Okay. And I feel that, we cannot guarantee what the government does, but certainly among the people, like at the grassroots level, increasingly we see that, people are more and more in love with your cause, and, they support your issues, and they really want the government to back you up, to provide all the support. I would also like to thank all our participants who spared their time and attended today's session, and all our special guests also. Before I end, I would leave the session. I would end the session with few questions to ponder over. Well, we saw that Pakistan has almost imposed an unending communication and security lockdown in Balochistan or Pashtun areas or POK and Gilgit-Baltistan, but no one talks about it. In Kashmir, it was this communication and security lockdown was imposed as a precautionary measure, not as a punitive measure. Why? Only because the politicians or the separatists who were arrested, they could have easily mobilized people and started a civil unrest in which numerous civilian people could have died. India imposed the security and communication lockdown only for a brief period of time, but Pakistan very successfully and cleverly made it a global issue. What are we doing? What is our academia doing? Is there some kind of a problem with our strategic thinking, or are we just sitting quiet, silent? This is the first question. Secondly, as we saw that West is going into some kind of a hibernation mode or some kind of a very major appeasement mode, Canada is harboring all kind of terrorists and Islamists in the world. Europe is also pretty much going towards that way. So we should really ask this question, like, should we chart our own course, or should we really be asking a counter question to the European countries when they make big blames and accusations towards India, especially on the matters of human rights or some kind of a sponsored farmer protest and all? Does the West have any legal or moral credibility, authority to raise even these questions? That is something which we need to ponder on. And thirdly, India being a very powerful country, and knowing it full well that we have a neighbor who exists primarily with the idea of Ghazwa-e-Hind and to destroy us. I coined the word, I prefer to say it as the biggest existential threat for India. Should we continue with our democratic methods and soft state policies to deal with this country, or we need to think out of the box purely for our own survival and for our own security? Otherwise, what's happening in Kashmir today, it's certainly going to happen in Kerala, maybe Northeast, maybe Punjab. Are we waiting for that moment? Or as Bilal Saab said, for waiting for another Mumbai to happen and then initiate the action? Or we should just be preemptive in our approach? These are the questions with which I will end the session. And once again, thanks all of you, sir, and all the participants. Hope to see you very soon. with some another webinar. And one more thing, so we also publish articles. Anyone who wants to write articles for us, issue briefs, papers, please feel free to approach us. And we are an independent, apolitical platform, and we really give opinions. We give a platform to independent opinions. Thank you very much. Thanks.